The human soldier woke up to find his unexpected reward a beautiful alien slave the pounding in Kai Rener's head. Felt like a battalion of micro-drills boring through his skull. He groaned, rolling onto his side as consciousness dragged him back to reality. The sterile white ceiling of his quarters on Eclipse Station swam into focus, and with it came the memories of the previous night. Damn you, Xander, he muttered, pressing his palm against his temple. The alien information broker had insisted on celebrating after Kai had pulled his scaly hide out of a firefight with rival traders. Some celebration. Whatever exotic liquor Xander had poured down his throat felt like it was still burning holes in his brain. As his vision cleared, Kai realized he wasn't alone. A figure stood silently in the corner of his room, motionless as a statue. He bolted upright, military instincts kicking in despite the hangover, then immediately regretted the sudden movement as pain lanced through his skull. Who the hell are you? He demanded, squinting through the discomfort. The figure stepped forward hesitantly into the light. It was a female humanoid, but definitely not human. Her skin was a deep crimson marked with intricate pale patterns that seemed to flow across her exposed arms and face. Silvery white hair felt in two elegant strands over her shoulders, contrasting dramatically with her skin. She wore what could barely be described as clothing, tattered beige fabric that revealed more than it concealed, emphasizing both her vulnerability and her undeniably alluring form. Most disturbing were the energy cuffs binding her wrists, glowing with a soft blue light. Xander sent me, she whispered, eyes fixed on the floor. I am your reward. Kai stared at her, his hangover momentarily forgotten. What your reward? She repeated, her voice barely audible, for saving his life. Slowly Kai rose from the bed, dressed only in the light gray compression shorts he'd worn to sleep. He stood a head taller than the alien woman, his muscular frame honed by years of military service running a hand through his dark hair. He tried to process what was happening. Look at me, he said, his voice gentler than before. Reluctantly, she raised her eyes. They were a striking amber color with vertical pupils that reminded him of a cat's. Fear was evident in them, along with resignation. What's your name? He asked. She seemed surprised by the question. I am called Lyra. Lee, he repeated. And Xander gave you to me. She nodded once, the movement almost imperceptible. You're not a thing to be someone's reward, Kai said quietly, trying to catch her frightened gaze. I don't own people. Confusion flickered across her features. But Master, Xander said. I don't care what Xander said, Kai interrupted, anger rising in his chest, not at her, but at the situation. Where I come from, people aren't property. He stepped closer, noticing how she tensed, as if expecting a blow. The reaction made his stomach turn. I'm going to remove those cuffs, he said, reaching for her bound wrists. Lyra's eyes widened in alarm. Please no. If you reject the gift, Master Xander will be dishonored. He will have me terminated. Kai froze his hand halfway to the energy cuffs. Terminate. I am defective merchandise, son, she explained, her voice flat and emotionless. I was to be disposed of before Master Xander decided I would make an appropriate gift for you. Jesus Christ, Kai muttered, running a hand over his face. The hangover was coming back with a vengeance, compounded by the moral dilemma before him. This is insane. He paced the small room, acutely aware of Lyra watching his every move. Eclipse Station operated under its own laws, or lack thereof. It was a trading hub where anything and anyone could be bought and sold. Humans were relative newcomers to the galactic community, and while the Earth Alliance had strict anti-slavery laws, they held little sway in places like this. Okay, he finally said, turning back to her. For now you stay here, but you're not my slave, understand? You're a guest. Lyra tilted her head slightly, clearly confused by the concept. What would you have me do as your guest? Kai sighed. Nothing, just sit down, relax. I need to think. He gestured to the small couch in the corner of his quarters. After a moment's hesitation, Lyra moved to it and perched on the edge, her posture rigid and uncomfortable. Kai pulled on a simple gray t-shirt and pants, then activated his comm unit. I need to have a chat with our mutual friend Xander, he explained. Stay here. As he reached the door, he paused, looking back at the alien woman sitting stiffly on his couch, energy cuffs still glowing around her wrists. I'll figure this out, Lyra, I promise. For the first time, something other than fear flickered in her amber eyes, the faintest glimmer of hope. Finding Xander wasn't difficult. The Saurian information broker practically lived in the central marketplace of Eclipse Station, where he could keep his clawed fingers on the pulse of all trading activity. Kai spotted him at his usual table in the Nebula Lounge, surrounded by a group of traders hanging on his every word. the four-armed alien was just gesticulating wildly his scales shifting from green to a pleased purple as he regaled his audience with some tale of daring trade negotiations. Xander, Kai called out, cutting through the chatter. We need to talk. The Saurian's head swiveled toward him. Reptilian eyes blinking in recognition, "Ah, the hero of the hour," he exclaimed, his universal translator giving his voice a metallic timbre. "Come join us. I was just telling everyone how you single-handedly saved me from those Varian pirates." Privately, Kai insisted, his expression leaving no room for argument. Xander's scales rippled with annoyance, but he excused himself from his admirers and followed Kai to a quiet corner of the lounge. "What troubles you, my human friend?" the Saurian asked, all four arms spread in a gesture of innocence. "Did you not like my gift? I thought she would be to your taste, exotic yet familiar enough in form." Kai leaned in close, keeping his voice low. "People aren't gifts, Xander. Where I come from, we don't own other sentient beings." Xander's scales shifted to a contemplative blue. "Ah yes, your Earth Alliance has such quaint notions, but we're not in Alliance space. Are we on Eclipse? The old ways still hold. I honored you with a valuable gift. You can't just give me a person." "I can, and I did," Xander replied calmly. "The Narian female was mine to give. She would have been terminated otherwise. Her previous owner found her too willful. I thought perhaps a human master might appreciate her spirit." Kai fought to keep his temper in check. "I want you to take her back and free her." Xander's scales darkened to a deep indigo, a sign of displeasure. Kai had learned impossible. "The transaction is complete. To return her would be a grave insult to both of us. Besides, where would she go? Narians are not welcome in many systems. Since their home world's destruction, she has no clan, no status." "That's not my problem," Kai insisted. "It is now." Xander countered. "You saved my life, Kai Renner. By the ancient codes, I owed you a life debt. The Narian fulfills that obligation. If you reject her, the debt remains unpaid and my honor is stained." His voice dropped to a hiss. "And I cannot allow that." Kai recognized the threat beneath the words. Xander was well connected on Eclipse Station, and making an enemy of him would be dangerous, possibly fatal. "Fine," Kai said through gritted teeth, "but I'm not treating her like property." Xander's scales lightened slightly. "Do with her as you wish. That is the point of ownership. But know this, if you free her officially, she becomes clanless, stateless. Many would see that as a fate worse than the servitude." The Sarian leaned closer, his reptilian face inches from Kai's. "And should you choose to abandon her here on Eclipse, I cannot guarantee her safety. There are those who would pay handsomely for an unclaimed Narian female." With that parting threat, Xander returned to his admirers, leaving Kai alone with an impossible choice. When Kai returned to his quarters, Lyra was exactly where he'd left her, perched on the edge of the couch. She hadn't moved an inch. "You can relax, you know," he said, closing the door behind him. She straightened even more. "If that was possible. Did you speak with Master Xander?" "Just Xander," Kai corrected automatically. "And yes, I did," he sighed, heavily dropping into the chair opposite her. "It seems I'm stuck with you for now." A flicker of relief crossed her features, quickly replaced by the neutral expression she seemed to maintain as a default. "But let's get one thing straight," Kai continued. "I don't believe in slavery. I don't own you. You're free to make your own choices." Lyra's brow furrowed slightly. "I do not understand. If I am not your property, what am I?" "A person," Kai said firmly. "Just a person who's staying with me for a while." She considered this, her amber eyes studying him intently. "And what will you require of me during this stay?" Kai ran a hand through his hair, frustrated by her persistent assumption that she needed to serve him somehow. "Nothing, just be yourself." "Myself," she repeated as if testing an unfamiliar word. "I'm not sure I know who that is anymore." The simple honesty of her statement hit Kai like a physical blow. He leaned forward, meeting her gaze directly. "Then we'll figure it out together. But first things first." He reached for her bound wrist, nodding. "How?" She flinched slightly but didn't pull away. "Let's get these off." The energy cuffs had a simple release mechanism. With a soft click and a fatting blue glow, they deactivated and fell away from her wrists, revealing pale bands where they had restricted her crimson skin. Lyra stared at her freed wrists in wonder. "Gently rubbing the marked areas better?" Kai asked. She nodded slowly, still seemingly bewildered by her new situation. "Good. Now, are you hungry? I could use some breakfast, and I'm guessing you could too." At the mention of food, Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "I yes. If it pleases you." "It's not about pleasing me," Kai said, standing up. "It's about taking care of your needs. Come on, there's a decent food court on level 3. As they left his quarters, Kai Noticed how Lyra stayed precisely 2 steps behind him, the posture of a servant. Following a master, he slowed his pace until they were walking side by side. We walked together, he said quietly. Equals Lyra hesitated, then adjusted her position to walk alongside him. It was a small victory, but Kai would take it as. They navigated the bustling corridors of Eclipse Station. He couldn't help but notice the stares they attracted, some curious, some disapproving, some predatory. Our Eclipse was a melting pot of species and cultures, but the sight of a human male with what was clearly a Narian female companion drew attention. Kai moved slightly closer to Lyra, a protective instinct kicking in whatever mess Xander had dragged him into. One thing was becoming clear: Lyra wasn't safe on her own here, and despite his principles, despite his anger at the situation, he couldn't bring himself to abandon her to whatever fate awaited unclaimed beings on this lawless station. For now, at least, they were stuck with each other. The food court on level 3 of Eclipse Station was a cacophony of sound, smells, and species. Vendors hawked everything from Archer and Flame grilled meats to Centurin frost fruits, creating a sensory overload that momentarily distracted Kai from his predicament. Lyra stayed close to his side, her amber eyes wide as she took in the bustling marketplace. Her crimson skin drew curious glances from passers by, some appreciative, others calculating in ways that made Kai's jaw clench. Have you been here before? He asked, guiding her toward a human-run stall that served something approximating Earth breakfast. Only once, she replied softly. My previous master preferred to keep me confined to his quarters. Kai winced at her casual reference to captivity. Well, that's not happening anymore. You go where you want. A flicker of confusion crossed her features. But where would I go? The innocent question hit Kai harder than he expected. Freedom meant nothing without options, and on Eclipse Station, Lyra had precious few. For now, you stick with me, he said, approaching the food vendor. 2 breakfast specials, please. While they waited for their food, Kai studied Lyra more carefully. In the harsh lighting of the food court, the inadequacy of her clothing was even more apparent. The tattered beige fabric barely covered her, clearly designed to display rather than protect. We need to get you some proper clothes, he said, keeping his voice casual despite the anger simmering beneath. Something comfortable. Lyra glanced down at herself, then back at him with genuine confusion. You find this garment displeasing? I find it degrading, Kai replied honestly. You deserve better. A strange expression crossed her face. Surprise mingled with something like wonder. Before she could respond, their food arrived: plates of scrambled synthetic eggs, protein strips that approximated bacon, and steaming cups of a coffee-like beverage. Kai led them to a small table in a relatively quiet corner. As they sat, he noticed Lyra's hesitation before the food. Is something wrong? Can you eat this stuff? He asked, suddenly concerned about potential dietary incompatibilities. Yes, I can consume it, she assured him. I am accustomed to waiting for permission. Kai set down his fork. You don't need permission, not for eating, not for speaking, not for anything, understand? She nodded slowly, then carefully picked up her utensils and began to eat with delicate precision. After a few bites, her pace quickened and Kai realized she was probably starving. When was the last time you ate? He asked. Lyra paused, considering. Yesterday morning, I believe, before Master Xander decided to gift me. Kai pushed his plate toward her. Here, take some of mine too. She looked alarmed. I couldn't possibly. I insist, he said firmly. I'm not that hungry anyway. It was a lie. He was ravenous after last night's drinking, but the gratitude in her eyes as she accepted the additional food was worth the sacrifice. As they ate, Kai's mind raced through options. Eclipse Station wasn't safe for either of them now. If he truly rejected the concept of owning Lyra, he'd be making an enemy of Xander. And based on the information broker's parting words, Lyra would be in even greater danger. We need to leave Eclipse, he said quietly, leaning forward. Lyra's eyes widened. Leave, but where would we go? Earth Alliance space, Kai replied without hesitation. My people have laws against slavery. You could apply for refugee status. Refugee, she repeated, testing the unfamiliar word. And you would take me there? I would. Kai confirmed. My tour of duty ended 3 months ago. I was just passing through Eclipse on my way home when I got tangled up with Xander. Lyra set down her utensils, her amber eyes studying him with newfound intensity. Why would you do this for me? You owe me nothing. The question caught Kai off guard. He'd been operating on instinct, on the moral certainty that helping her was the right thing to do, but there was more to it than that. A connection he felt to this strange, beautiful alien woman who maintained her dignity despite everything she'd endured. Because it's The right thing to do, he said simply, and because no one deserves to be treated as property, a small smile the first he'd seen from her curved Lyra's lips. The sight of it sent an unexpected warmth through Kai's chest. Thank you. She whispered. Their eyes met across the table, and something shifted in the air between them. For a moment Kai forgot about their precarious situation, about Xander's threats, about the stares of the other patrons. He was simply a man looking at a woman whose smile transformed her from beautiful to breathtaking. Lyra was the first to look away, a deeper crimson flush spreading across her cheeks. How would we leave? She asked, her voice slightly breathless. Surely, Master, surely Xander would try to stop us. Kai forced himself to focus on the practical aspects of their escape. We'll need to find a ship heading to Alliance space, preferably one with a captain who doesn't ask too many questions that will require credits. Lyra observed. Passage is expensive. I've got savings, Kai assured. Her military pay doesn't leave much opportunity for spending. As they finished their meal, Kai noticed Lyra's posture had changed subtly. She sat straighter, her movements more fluid and confident. It was as if the mere prospect of freedom had begun to transform her. Our first priority is getting you some proper clothes, Kai said as they left the food court. Then we'll start making discreet inquiries about outbound ships. As they walked side by side through the station corridors, their hands brushed. Accidentally, Lyra didn't pull away, and neither did Kai. The brief contact sent a jolt of awareness through him that had nothing to do with their escape plans and everything to do with the woman beside him. For the first time since waking to find her in his quarters, Kai allowed himself to acknowledge the attraction he felt under different circumstances in a different place. He might have pursued it, but here now, with the power imbalance between them, it felt wrong to even think about. Yet, when Lyra glanced up at him, her amber eyes warm with something more than gratitude, Kai wondered if perhaps she felt it too. This unexpected connection between a human soldier and an alien woman thrown together by fate in a misguided gift. Whatever lay between them would have to wait. First, they needed to escape. The merchant district of Eclipse Station was a labyrinth of small shops and stalls, each more colorful than the last. Kai led Lyra through the crowded passageways, acutely aware of the occasional glances they attracted. More concerning was the hulking draconian he'd spotted twice now, always maintaining the same distance behind them. Don't look back, Kai murmured, placing his hand lightly on the small of Lyra's back to guide her into a clothing shop. But we're being followed. One of Xander's associates. Lyra tensed beneath his touch but kept her gaze forward. What do we do for? Now we shop, Kai replied with forced casualness, and we feed him false information. The clothing shop was run by a Wizardelian with 6 arms each, working independently to fold, measure, and display various garments. The shopkeeper's compound eyes assessed them as they entered. Awe customers. Turelian chittered. How may I assist you today? My companion needs a complete wardrobe, Kai explained. Something practical, durable, and perhaps less revealing. Lyra added quietly, surprising Kai with her assertiveness. The shopkeeper's eyes flickered between them, clearly noting Lyra's current attire in drawing conclusions. Of course, new ownership, new attire. I understand completely. Kai opened his mouth to correct the assumption, but Lyra squeezed his arm gently. Let him think what he wants, she whispered. It's safer that way. While the shopkeeper bustled about gathering garments, Lyra ran her fingers over a bolt of deep blue fabric on Nyar. Before its destruction, only the highest castes wore colors like this, she said softly. The rest of us wore neutrals to reflect our station. Kai watched her face as she spoke of her home world. The markings on your skin, do they indicate your caste? Lyra's hand